So we can get that going so we can keep track of it. I would ask everybody to go on mute if you're not already on mute, please. And then I'm going to spotlight Judith. Let's see if I can get her. Did that spotlight? Yeah, there she is. So she should be up on your screen. So I'm going to start with just some general questions. And then Judith sent me a bunch of pictures. So I've got a slide deck that we'll go through with some gorgeous pictures on it. I was so excited. It was so much fun putting them into a PowerPoint so y'all can see them. And then she also has some things that she can hold up to the camera and show us. So I'm really excited about this. So Judith, you're on mute. It looks like. Are you on mute? No, that's your little, sorry. It's the bar, you're fine. You're fine. It's your power bar I see at the bottom there, which is all 4 bars. So that it does say your bandwidth is low, so there's a little bit of a delay, but we'll just deal with it.
Okay.
So what got you started? Were you, it looked like from the pictures you came from a quilting background more than a stitching background, or was it?
No, I didn't. Actually, I'm from a family of stitchers. My great-grandmother was a master quilter, but that wasn't handed down to us in any way. I didn't pick up a needle until I was in my 30s. I'm totally self-taught.
Wow.
So I was raised on a cattle ranch in Alberta, Canada, the oldest cattle ranch in Canada, the Bayou Ranch. And my poor mother, who was very handy and creative, tried so hard to teach me, but I would hide from her in the barn. And then later on, after being married at 25 and pregnant at 29, I decided that I would maybe make my son a quilt. And so I got out a book and tried to do it that way. But other than that, I'm totally self-taught in my crazy quilting, in my embroidery, and on my landscape work that I do now.
Very cool. And so was the silk ribbon came about as a part of the crazy quilting and doing stitches on that, or?
My career took off in a very strange way. I'm also a chef. I was a chef, and I had a 1-star little restaurant in Houston, Texas, in Humble. And I joined a quilt guild there, the Kingwood Quilt Guild. And I learned to quilt from that group. And then in 1980, then I have lived abroad for years with my first husband. We lived overseas. We were in England for quite some time. And I saw my first crazy quilt at the Victoria and Albert Museum. And I just fell in love with it, not realizing that my grandmother had made 3 crazy quilts of her own. But my family did not inherit any of her work. It went to my brother's sister, who couldn't sew on a button, and she had just hidden it all away. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to learn to crazy quilt, and my quilt teacher at the time said, "Oh, that's not anything to be interested in. It's not quilting and all this and that." And I thought, well, that's like waving a red flag at a bull. So I thought, I'm going to teach myself how to do this. When I started researching crazy quilting, there was absolutely nothing out there for instructions. Even went to the Washington Library, Congressional Library. I could find nothing on it. So I just went about teaching myself how to do it. And I came up with a method that is known as the Montano method. And it's a very traditional way of crazy quilting, which unfortunately a lot of people, by not following the instructions properly, have changed it into what almost like a strip quilting. And that's that's not crazy quilting, but we'll get into that a little later. And so that's how I got started. And you have some pictures of my very early work. So maybe we could show some of that.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. While I'm getting that set up, somebody suggested that it might help with the bandwidth if everybody turned their video off so that we didn't see you. You'll still be able to see Judith, but if you turned that off so that your picture wasn't displaying, that might help with the bandwidth a little bit. So let's try that. Let me see if I can get this started.
Are you really having a problem down there? Because I could try to go on the internet from down here. I am actually on my hotspot on my cell phone.
It's sorry, I'm doing two things at once and it's not working very well.
Okay.
We just don't, you're a little blurry. We can hear you okay, but it's
blurry.
It's a little blurry. Let me see. Yeah. Mindy thinks it might be better if you try your internet.
Yeah, she's also frozen most of the time on my screen.
Right.
This is Debbie.
Okay. Do you want to try your internet and see if it does better than the hotspot?
I'm going to now. Thank you.
Okay. I'm
I
gonna.
don't know.
Try this.
Gosh,
There we go.
I'm sorry about this. I just don't know.
Nope, it's technology.
I don't know how to get with them. I'm pretty good at stuff, but this is really strange. Why can't I bring up my, oh, there it is. Okay, now I'm on my internet. Does that help you?
It still says the bandwidth is low. Let's give it a little bit. Let's do the walk through the slideshow and slide.
All right.
See if I can get this to come up.
Just been one of those days today. I just.
Yeah. There, can you see the slideshow? The first page?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I set these up in the order that you sent them to me. So the first one was your early days.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So how's that? Can you see that one?
Oh, wonderful. So I started off my career by teaching as a teacher, basic quilting and things like that. I moved to Colorado and soon became the assistant to the curator of textiles at the Denver Art Museum. And through that, I was able to work in the back with the crazy quilts. And then later in the 80s, I was sent to Japan to the Mitsukoshi department store for a big quilt show from the DAM. And while I was there, I was approached by Kanagawa Silks and Makuba Ribbons to please come back as a teacher, and they wanted to sponsor me. I was a single mother with 2 children, and they rewarded me handsomely. And so I returned for 17 years back and forth to Japan, working for these 2 companies. And this is made of threads from Kanagawa silk and some of my crazy quilt pieces and punch needle. I'm wearing a punch needle Navajo jacket.
Very cool.
That's quite the hairdo I had then. I had lovely black hair. So I was, as I said, raised on the Bayou Ranch. And I entered this quilt in, I think it was 1982. And this quilt was made in memory of my godfather. I was adopted when I was 14 years old by my godparents. And but in the ranching area, these are all cattle brands from surrounding ranches. It's very, very dated. It's hand appliqued in the center. With a trip around the world with my friend Blanche Young used to do. And I entered this in many places. I won Best of Show, the Texas State Fair, Best of Show, Calgary Exhibition and Stampede, Pacific National in Vancouver, British Columbia, and it won a lot of awards. And then I gave it to the Bayou National Heritage Center Museum in Canada, and this quilt hangs in the movie room and is a gift to them.
Very cool. Where is the Bayou located in Alberta?
Thank you. The Bayou Ranch is located in Alberta, Canada. It's the oldest, largest cattle ranch in Canada. It's a huge heritage. I'm very proud of it. Federal government purchased 80 acres around the buildings, the original buildings, and they have turned it into a living museum. So all kinds of neighbors are able to work there, and you can ride on a hay wagon down into the, they take you on tours of the ranch buildings and things like that. But it represents all of ranching in Canada.
Cool. How far is it from
It's a
Calgary?
little bittersweet when your home is turned into a museum.
Yeah.
Pardon?
How far is it from Calgary?
60 miles.
Okay.
In fact, if any of you follow my Facebook page, I'm working on a series of reminiscent stories right now. I belong to a photography club, and each week we're given a challenge. For example, this week it was gloves. And that reminded me of all the ranchers and cowboys with their gloves in their back pockets. So my story this week is about my husband, who models for me all the time. And my husband's Afro-American. And about the first Black cowboy that worked on the Bayou Ranch, a very famous man named John Ware. So if you look on this week, I'll post that story. But each week I post a different photograph and a different story.
Very cool. We had this one. Did that one come up?
No, oh, there it is. This is the very first wall hanging I ever made for Crazy Quilting. And I just thought I'd hung the moon with this. It was just amazing. And I made this landscape in the center. I thought that was very, very avant-garde. We're way ahead of our time, eh? And I look at that now and I think, my God, what was I thinking? A little pyramid and these very, very sort of Grandma Moses type centerpiece, but that's how I got started. And this is a wall hanging that was done in 1986.
Who are the signatures on the quilt?
They're from my family. Yeah.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm. This is I was a president of the Kingwood Quilt Guild down in Houston, Texas area, and the Kingwood area. And when I left to move to, I sold my restaurant and to a wonderful French chef. And I moved with my family up to Castle Rock area. I lived in Surrey Ridge for many years. Mm-hmm. And all my friends were so tired of hearing me talk about the crazy quilt I was going to make. So secretly, unbeknownst to me, they sent around a round robin, and anybody that wanted to contribute a piece to the crazy quilt could. And they pinned it to muslin. and gave it to me on my last meeting. And it's a beautiful little memory quilt. It's 60 inches by 60 inches. And I was so ignorant at the time as to how to make a crazy quilt. I had this 60-inch piece of muslin that I applicate all these things onto, whereas proper crazy quilt is done like a 10-inch or 12-inch block or a rectangle, and then those are sewn together. But this is how I got started.
That's a beautiful memory.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
And then this one.
I've always been a painter. All my life, I've been an artist, and I have a degree from the University of California in fine art. And so even as a child, I had many cowboy artist mentors and people like Charlie Beale, and who encouraged me in pen and ink and things like that. So then I made a living as a painter with the San Francisco Art Guild. And I thought, gosh, I'm working in fabrics now. Why don't all the rules of painting apply to needlework? We need a background, midground, foreground. Maybe I can use threads and yarns and ribbons instead of paint. So I started out by hand dyeing the sky fabrics and then burning the edges of fabrics to get a more organic shape, and then trying to produce these pictures. And this one is like what I went through a series of what I called slice pictures. And so it looks like you've sliced down the center of the earth. So you have the background, all the hills and things like that. And then we've in the foreground, that long line, the horizontal line. Then underneath there is all the things buried in the earth, and so that's where all the needlework started. And like I said, I've made a lot of mistakes as I went along. I look at this piece now and I don't know what I was thinking with the stitching being so high along the hills in the back. If in a painting or a real life, we would never see anything back there. But this is one of my early pieces, and it's called Just Over That Hill Was My Home.
Very cool.
Very nice.
And then we've got this one. I like the tree.
Yeah, same period, same era, the 80s, and playing always. I mean, I used to be terrified that to play with threads and tear them apart and wonder what would happen. And then I just got braver and braver as I went along, and always crazy quilting appears in my landscape work, even to this day, even though they're really, really heavily embroidered now. Somewhere, somehow, I'll even use crazy quilting underneath layers of tulle and netting to create shadow, highlight and shadows. So this is just a mix of stitching. There's some, I have some punch needle embroidery in there, and a lot of twisted yarns and threads. So
Did you paint these fabrics for these
No,
hills in the middle, or is that the way that
they're
the
all
fabric was?
hand-dyed, or they're fabric I bought as is. That actually is a yukata fabric that I purchased. Yeah, the one running horizontal and then that one. Yeah. Just beautiful. I
beautiful.
love the colors. Yeah.
I like this one.
And I frame my pieces like paintings. They're heavily padded. They're in a double mat, and I teach all my students to do that. It's all in my books. I've written now 14 books, and I'm supposed to be on a new book, but I'm lollygagging. So this is the first. I've spent 27 years in Australia, going back and forth for annual teaching tours, anywhere from a month to six weeks. And my students in Australia are just amazing. They are years ahead of the Americans in that I think it's because they have to be quite innovative and make do with what they got. And now, years and years later, it's much easier to get the products. But I was, this would be about into it by 10 years. And I had this wonderful group in Mollymook Bay in Ulladulla, New South Wales. And I couldn't teach them anything anymore, but they still wanted me to come and be with them. And so I said, okay, let's run down to the bay and take a photograph of the bay, and we'll all have the same photograph. And now let's try to reproduce it in a little landscape, because I'd been teaching them that week. And this little piece here is only about not 5 by 7, but say 10 by 14. It's not very big. And so we started off and we said, when we come back, we always rented a big hall in a hotel. We'll have an art show in the lobby and we'll invite our friends and have a little potluck. And we had like 200 to 300 people go through and there were 20 pieces in the first show. And it was just amazing. Mine was the smallest. And it was the beginning of my landscape career.
Very cool.
Yeah, this is a very sentimental piece for me. So I also, at the same time that I was crazy quilting, I was raising my children, and I had this other career making art to wear garments for people. And I've been in the Fairfield fashion show at Houston, Texas, at the International Quilt Show for almost 14 years. I've done that many garments. And this is my daughter, Madeleine, in an evening gown that I made for the Fairfield fashion show, but she got to wear it to prom. And with that wonderful shawl with all the Bakuba ribbons and twisted design. And I love to combine crazy quilting with embellishments. And this is just one garment.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Your beautiful daughter too.
She is. She's now 42 and she's even more beautiful. There she is. She's 14 years old here. And this is called Sacred Shield. And because of my Indian heritage, which I didn't find out about until I was in my late 20s, it was supposed, even though our cattle ranch was right up next to the Stoney Indian Reserve, and the Stoney kids were my only playmates. And my dearest friend in life is a Stoney Indian woman named Gracie Left Hand. I didn't realize that I was a quarter Cherokee Indian until I was in my 20s. And it shows in my daughter. And she was my very reluctant model. This is made with ultra suede and let's see, Russian Igolichkoy, the punch needle embroidery, and lots of jingle bells and things like that. And this was a Fairfield Concord garment.
Cool. Was the photograph at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science?
Yes.
I thought I recognized that wolf.
Yeah, that's the wolf. This is the very first garment I ever made for art to wear. And it was through a fabric company. I think it was Concord Fabrics. And it was the year that the Statue of Liberty was being reopened. And they had 14 people to be in the fashion show, all using the same fabric. And of course, it wasn't very attractive. So it was beige with navy blue, little tiny flowers. It was navy blue with little tiny beige flowers. And it was really bad. But we could, if we made the garment, it could be 25% our own work. So this is what I made. but people like Yvonne Purcella, she wrote inside her jacket a little bit of quilting, a little bit of quilting, and the inside was just vibrant, beautiful colors. Another artist took the fabric and sprinkled it with bleach and dye, and then ran over it about 20 times with her car just to age the fabric a little bit. And no one was happy about this fabric, but it was the beginning of the art to wear era.
Very cool.
It's one of my beautiful horses in the background. And then, of course, at the same time, this is in my studio in Los Angeles after when I first got married to my husband, Ernest. And this is me working. It's a publicity shot that was set up for, I did a lot of, we had videos, we had a wrapping paper line, a card line, all various things like that. And that's my little dog Arthur in the background. I'm sorry.
Okay.
He wants in. He's he's my dog, and he can't believe he's not in the studio with me. But anyway, this is a very early picture, and my son, who's a graduate of the Vancouver Film School, he was made 4 different how-to videos for me, and this is from one of the videos.
Okay, cool. Then the next section was your crazy quilts.
Yes.
So here's this
For
one.
every crazy quilt I have finished, there's 5 unfinished ones. I have an amazing family of which I'm incredibly proud. We have a blended family of 5 children. I have 4 daughters and a son, and every one of them is just just interesting, fun people. We are an ethnic group of Chinese, Japanese, Indian, Jewish, Muslim. Let's see, we have a couple of atheists in there. I have a Japanese son-in-law. I have a Hungarian son-in-law. I have an Italian son-in-law. I have a Samoan French daughter-in-law. I have a Chinese Mexican daughter. It's just amazing, this blended family, and we get along so well. Right now I have my son and his daughter and wife visiting for the first time. I haven't been with my family in 14 months, and we're all inoculated now, and it's been wonderful. But this is my family. It's a family quilt. It's never going to be finished because my girls started arguing over who would get the family quilt. So I didn't finish it.
Okay. Well, that way you can add on too.
Well, I could. I mean, I have more grandchildren now. We're finished now. We have a 10-year-old. My 4 older grandchildren are in their late 20s and early 30s, and my 2 youngest ones are 4 and 10. So I think we're done. I could pop them in there somewhere, but then again, who's it going to go to? You see. So I think this one is, a lot of my pieces have been dedicated to the Denver Art Museum. I'm going to leave a body of work with them. So
Nice.
that might take care of a family problem.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And then there was this one.
Just so you know, those photographs are printed on silk, and it works out really well. I use jacquard silk. This is called the Victorian Actress quilt, and there was a large book. I'm drawing a blank here. I'm having a senior moment. They invited me to write the chapter on crazy quilting, and I made this quilt for that. And this quilt has been shown quite a bit until these are original cigarette silks in there, the actresses, and it's heavily embroidered. And I noticed that some of the silks are starting to wear out, to fray, to get a run in them. And so I've just retired this quilt. It's rolled up with properly done, and is living out its life in a closet, which is really sad, but I'm afraid that it'll deteriorate even more. All my time in Australia, I never make anything for myself. And I had just the most wonderful student friends and friends in Australia over the 27 annual tours I took. And my students would give me things like little pieces of fabric, little pieces of lace, maybe a button, or maybe a little Anzac button, things like that. And I had this collection. And finally, my friend Ruth Stoneley designed a whole line of Australian fabrics using Australian wildflowers. And she gave me that. And over there, they have, instead of Peter Rabbit, they have the Gumnut Babies. And May Gibbs wrote the series. The Gumnut Babies are very, very famous. And they're little naked babies who wear gumnut hats. And it's like, she's like the Beatrice Potter of Australia. And so I had some fabric with that. And I decided to make myself a memory quilt. And this is it. And the only thing that isn't a gift from a student is the painting, the Australian cottage. I made a watercolor painting of that and printed it on silk. And then I burned the outline of Australia in the crazy quilt area and popped that in the background. And then the surround, the watermark satin around the edge.
Pretty.
Super sentimental. And the little, there you go. This is a wall hanging, you know, my poor daughter Madeline, she was always my model and she hated doing that. And then the kids got really smart and started charging me by the hour for modeling for my books and stuff like that. And then she always hated wearing the crazy quilt things. And so then she went to university and became a graphic designer. And I get a phone call and it says, "Hey, Mom, you know, in my living room, I wondered if you would do a wall hanging for me of crazy quilting, but it can't have any flowers on it. Can you come up with something?" So I started thinking about undulating and curved bridges, undulating lines, things that give the impression they're undulating through the piece, and then the feeling that they're bridges. And I started playing with that. And this is a wall hanging that hangs in her home now.
Bright colors.
Thank you. I love working in the jewel tones. They're my favorite. So Kay Fassett is a very dear friend of mine. We've known each other for many, many years. We've team taught in Japan and in Europe. And one year we went with our better halves to a flea market at 4 a.m. And when he was admiring this little tiny Morning Glory tea set, 6 little Morning Glory cups. And he turned his back on that, and I bought it for him as a gift. And lo and behold, he comes up with this Morning Glory fabric. So I used it a lot in crazy quilts. This was actually a commissioned piece. It's framed like a painting, and it now lives in Oklahoma.
I like this ribbon with the flowers right through the middle.
That's actually both of them are Makuba ribbon. I worked for Makuba for many years, the most glorious, and every time I would go over to Japan, to Tokyo, to the warehouse, they would send me home with shopping bags of ribbon. It was just amazing. So I'm very lucky that way. It's a velvet crimped ribbon.
Pretty.
This is a little memory quilt. This is a quilt that is called Monet's Garden in spring. I went over with my husband. I took my husband on a holiday. I've never been on just a holiday. I've always, all my travel has been connected with my work. So I go teach overseas and then have a couple of days ahead or a couple of days after. But this time I went over not as a teacher at all. I just took my husband to France and we spent 3 weeks there and had the most amazing time. And we made friends with artists in Menère, France, we traveled everywhere. And this was from, we went to Monet's garden and spent a whole day there, and the roses were in bloom. And the reflections in the pools, I wanted to emulate that in a crazy quilt. It's hard for you to see this, but this crazy quilt is heavily, heavily layered and embroidered. And those little pansies you see are from an antique milliner's store that I went to in Adelaide, Australia, and I bought 40 of them. They feel almost like paper, but they were used for women's hats. And you'll also see that there's embroidered trees going in this project. There you go. Thank you. Yeah. So I started playing around with embroidering the seam lines in a different fashion rather than just using Victorian stitching. Each project I ever make, I learn something new. Ricky Timms is a very close friend of mine. In fact, he lives in this area and we see each other quite a bit. Not the last year, of course, we've been hunkered in, but I entered this in the Houston Quilt Show and I was hysterical because this is silk velvet borders. And when I tried to miter the corners and work with it, I was having a terrible time, just terrible. And I couldn't get the corners to lay flat. And he came over to give me advice and he thought he could help work with it. And the minute he put it into the sewing machine and took about 6 stitches, he turned it back to me and he said, here, I can't. So finally we came up with the idea that I could embroider the corners flat using stitching, silk ribbon embroidery. So that's why the stitching goes out in the 4 corners. I'd like to tell you it's because I'm such an artist, but it was for practical purposes.
There's this one.
So being a painter, I've been returning to La Vida and Colorado and Trinidad, Colorado since this 1968. My father, I wanted to be a doctor more than anything in the world, but in Canada we write exams, federal exams in grade 9 and grade 12. And that sort of culling us all out. They just take the cream of the crop because they had fewer universities than down here. And so I wanted to go to med school. And no matter what, I could not pass the chem course. I even had a tutor. Oh my God, my grades were just horrific. Everything else was honors except for this failure in chemistry. So I was not allowed to go to med school. And I was heartsick. And so the only thing else I wanted to be was an artist, and my parents forbid that. So I thought, well, I'll be a writer and I'll study journalism. And my father had a cousin who lived in Trinidad, Colorado. And she was the dean of women's Greeley's Teachers College, and she'd retired, and because of asthma had moved to Trinidad, where the high and dry.
Mhm.
And we'd never met her, but she lied to my father and said that they had the most amazing journalism program at the Trinidad State Junior College. And so I thought, oh, my sister's a chem major. Maybe she can come too. Oh, yes, we have the fabulous, fabulous chemistry courses and a lab. So my sister and I flew to Denver, first time ever on a plane. And then we caught the train in Denver all the way down to Trinidad. And by the time we got to Trinidad, we were hysterical because here we are, from Alberta, Canada. We'd never seen garbage in the streets. We'd never seen graffiti, ever. We couldn't get over all the old rusted out vehicles and the old abandoned buildings along the track. And it was getting drier and drier as we were going along. And we were crying harder and harder. And we got out of the train and fell into the arms of this woman who we didn't even know. And she assured us everything was going to be fine. And we get to the dorm and got settled in. And I go to take the first journalism course, and there is no journalism course. It's just simply writing for the school, working on a school newspaper. My sister goes to her first chem course. There is no chem lab. There's just a Bunsen burner sitting in the corner of one of the schoolrooms. And of course, we were even more upset. But slowly but surely, I don't know how it happened. We couldn't leave that first semester. We had to stick it out for the first semester. We slowly fell in love with the area. And there's a beauty to that part of Colorado and the desert that grows on you. And then I discovered my lifelong mentor and art teacher, Bill Johnson, who was the art teacher there in Trinidad State Junior College. And he was an illustrator for the Saturday Evening Post. And he had come out west to paint for the pulp fiction book magazines and things like that. And he was my art teacher. And until the day he died, I returned every year to Trinidad to be with him and to see my aunt, of course. But so I had this connection to the area. And my father, being a rancher, had also done a lot of business with a Bob Parsons in Stonewall. So we had this connection over the years. So if you told me then that I would end up living in La Veta, Colorado, I'd have never believed you. But here I am. I'm living in this arts community. It's been an artist community since the 60s. And it's made up of lovely old little mining houses and sheds and barns. And I decided that I would make a memory quilt of La Veta because I love to restore old things. I hate this idea of having to knock things down and build up something new. And so why can't we? I had been photographing the old sheds and houses and barns. And one day I was on my way to the hardware and I noticed there was this little adobe shed I love to photograph, and it was gone, and sitting in its place was an old like a tough shed from Home Depot. And I was just heartsick. All the old houses, the sheds, the barns in La Veta, to do watercolor paintings of them and then print them on silk and use them in my crazy quilts. And this piece is with my first line of fabric for Robert Kaufman Fabrics and my line of silk ribbon and threads with Treenway. It's called the Montano series. So everything in this quilt is mine, and I loved making it. And I gave it to the La Veta Library where it hangs in the entrance.
Very cool.
Mm.
Yeah, we interviewed where we did a tour of Treenway Silks last
Oh,
month.
you did, eh? Yeah.
Yes, and she showed us all the different ribbons and the Montano colorways. So
Thank you.
that
Yeah.
was a lot of fun.
Very proud of that. And when I designed that line, Treenway was out of an island in off of the coast of British Columbia,
Mhm.
Salt Springs Island. Yeah, but she's
Yeah.
doing a great job with it,
She is.
Susan. So I never thought I would. I have a granddaughter. Her name is Paloma. She's my son's child, and she is such a character and such a wonderful child. Sometimes you bond with a child that like you just didn't think could happen. Anyway, this little one, from the minute she was born, she and I have been joined at the hip. And Paloma means little dove in Spanish and Italian. And so I decided to make this wall hanging for her for when her birthday, when she was born. And I went online and downloaded copyright free vintage pictures of pigeons, different kinds of doves, I mean, and from all over the world. And I found the picture of the little girl in the center, and my Paloma has masses of black curly hair, brown eyes, and she's just a character. And so this is Ode to Paloma.
It's very cool.
Mm.
Now, like, this looks like a piece of tatting over
Oh,
here.
yeah, I use tatting a lot, and vintage pieces. There's all kinds of trees and branches going through this piece,
Yeah. I
sort
see.
of combining it in with the birds, the idea of yeah. I loved making it, and it hangs in her bedroom.
Nice.
Thank you.
Goodness.
So this is a piece I'm working on right now. I mean, I just have to put it together. I have to put the backing on and put the binding on it. I have to do the tie it off. But these are beautiful old vintage cigar silks. The cigar and cigarette silks were giveaways during the Victorian era in either the cigar box or a package of cigarettes. And women collected them for their crazy quilts. And so this is a piece that I've actually did for myself. And this is probably why it's not finished, because it's for me. But I love the animals very much. And it's just a sentimental piece. Also, the velvet on the edge, I don't know if you can see it at all, but it's a crushed velvet that I designed for Concord, for Robert Kaufman, I'm sorry, because using velvets in crazy quilting is very difficult because they slip and slide when you sew them and everything, but the crushed velvets work so much better. So we came up with this line.
Cool.
Mhm. This is a quilt that I made with all my again with my whole line of my first line of fabrics for Robert Kaufman, and I also designed a line of solid fabrics that were 40% silk and 60% cotton, and the solid colors, and every one of those fabrics in that quilt is a design I created. And even the velvet again is that velvet we were just talking about. But and this is the jewel tone. I work in 5. I work in pastels, light dusties, medium dusties, dark dusties, and jewel tone. And I don't mix any of them at all. So I stay very strict in those 5 colorways.
And then we have land and seascapes next.
Mm-hmm. So being a painter and loving to do, and I love realism very much. I started playing with fabrics years ago and teaching in Australia with my students there. They're at least 12 years ahead of the Americans, and in the fact that they are very innovative and eager to try things new and experiment and everything. So we sort of learned together, a lot of us. But again, Crazy Quilt. This is in the Selamar, in the Selamar in outside of Monterey. I teach there every year, and so I wanted to emulate the trees that are in that area, and then the ocean, of course, and the beach is the Crazy Quilt section. So this is one of my first pieces, early piece, and it's very large. It's about 36 by 20 inches. Framed. This piece is sold and now lives in Virginia somewhere.
Beautiful.
It's hard to sell my work. It's like I'm selling my children.
I bet.
Mm. This is called Sky Country. Ricky Timms and I get together 4 times a year and go out on a photo shoot. We get up at 4 in the morning and we're back by noon. And we were laying in a ditch on this day, in this ditch, in the mud, trying to get this shot. The sky was unbelievably magic at that day. And we're laying down there and he looked over at me and said, "Isn't this the most fun ever?" Getting into our, oh my God, we were so wet. But anyway, we got fabulous photographs, and then I proceeded to try to emulate it in my goal, my whole challenge to myself is that the piece has to be exactly like the photograph. I want you to think that when you see they're framed like a painting with a mat and everything, that it's a painting until you get up to it and you realize it's all fabrics and threads and ribbon. Yeah, I can't tell you how much I enjoy this kind of work. And hours can go by and I haven't even done half an inch on the project.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. This actually belongs to my daughter, Madeleine, and she hangs with pride of place because it's a memory for all of us. This is Mount Mestus, by the way, in the background. This one is, I'm sorry, it's so green because in reality, I'm going to have it redone because it's not quite so green. But this is Mount Rundle near Banff, Alberta, Canada, where I was raised. And this is from looking at it from the beaver pond. And this is a very early piece. And believe it or not, there was crazy quilting in that island center area there, which I then proceeded to cover up totally with stitching. And that happens to me a lot now. I use a lot of netting and a lot of tulle and cheesecloth and things like that.
Very pretty.
Thank you. This piece is I sold to Ricky Timms, mainly because the boys would not leave me alone with this project. I was with Ricky at one of his classes on an early morning drive up to their property in behind Mount Mestus, and the light was just magical. And I took a photograph, and then I thought, oh, I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to make myself this painting. And this one is 28 inches by 18 inches. And so I proceeded to start creating this piece. And then they had me on their television show with Alex Anderson. And I was showing them how I work and everything like that. And Ricky said, well, is that ever going to be for sale? And I said, no, not really. This is for myself. And I really want to keep this piece. And anyway, they wore me down, and finally I sold it to them. And they have given it a lovely home, really.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. This is a piece that hangs in my home, and it's just up the road from my house, and it's called On the Road to on Birch Street, and it's looking at the Wahatoya Mountains from the valley, at the top of the valley, and of course the crazy quilting I've used. It's a much simpler piece than the one you just saw, but I like it because it marks an area of my work when I was first starting to combine crazy quilting in with my landscape pieces. And I love how it transitions from the heavy stitching in the crazy quilt area, and then back into the background. So, and this is another piece, probably I think 32 inches by 18 or 19 inches. Mm-hmm. The wire on the fence, ladies, is fishing wire. You go to the fishing stores, to the fly fishing department, and you can find the most amazing threads and fine wire. So fine you could embroider with it. Mm. This is a very small piece. This is I think it's 14 inches by 9, something like that. And it's called On the Road to Seward. This is from a tour in Alaska. And we were going up to Seward, and we saw this lake covered with these amazing water lilies. And we stopped to admire it. And this is a small piece I've done. And there's a lot of stitching on cheesecloth, a lot of layering in the water area there of tulle and netting to create the reflections in the water.
I wondered how you did that.
Yeah, lots of layers, layering, and a lot of patience, but it's worth it in the long run. This is a very large piece that is now living in Virginia too. It was hard to let this one go. This is called Laguna Pueblo, and it's in New Mexico, just outside of Santa Fe. And it's the first time I've used buildings. This piece is 36 by 26 inches. It's quite large for the kind of work I do. And I worked on it for a long time, but I enjoyed every minute of it. The photograph I caught this raven in flight, and this is just after a big rainstorm. And believe it or not, but where all that needlework is in the gully there, that was all crazy quilted. And I really liked it. And then I thought, well, I should add a little more stitching. Oh, maybe I'll add some more here and there. And before I knew it, I had it all covered up. But I don't use a lot of fancy stitches in my landscape pieces. I use a lot of feather stitch, straight stitches, lazy daisy, and all. I do it all freeform, so it's almost literally painting with the threads and that. But I just love doing this kind of work.
Excuse me, Judith,
Yes.
but the Laguna Pueblo is outside Albuquerque, not Santa Fe.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then this one.
I spend a lot of time in Big Sur. Kaif's family own Nepenthe restaurant, and his niece, Erin Gaffel, I've been collecting her art for years, and she lives in a log house at Nepenthe, and so I go down there to teach for that. They have a wonderful program where a teacher like myself comes in, teaches for free, and the people that come for the class pay, and the money that we earn for the class goes to an arts program that Erin does for the migrants, or the migrant workers' children, and all the children who are too poor to take art classes, and it's free for them. And it's something I really like to do. You can see the crazy quilting has been used for shadow and light in the water area, under lots of layering of hand-dyed tulle, silk tulle, and netting and things. And I really, this piece also hangs in my house.
Very cool.
Thank you.
And then this one.
Ah, I love this piece, but I don't have it anymore. When I say I had to sell it, it's a bit of a strange story. But this is a view of the east peak of the Wahatoya Mountains that I love, and I go up there a lot to take photographs. And there's a little tree way down in the valley in the center, and that's an old apple tree. And in the spring, if we have a good spring, it blooms what masses of white flowers, and it's so beautiful. And I wanted to make myself a piece. This is about, I'd say, 12 by 18 inches. And so I created this piece, and then our local galleries are always asking me to show my work, but I don't want to sell it in the galleries. So the only way you can show your work is if it has a price tag on it. So I put an outrageous price on it. My neighbor was going through a very bitter divorce, and she was choosing to leave La Vida. And it was a very sad time. And I got through the art show without anybody wanting to buy it, thank God. And I had brought it home, and she came over and she said to me, "Look, I've been thinking about this piece a long time, and I need a memory of La Vida, and I want to buy that." And I said, "Oh no, you don't want to buy this. It's way too much money." And she goes, "No, it isn't. No, not, it's exactly what I want." So I very reluctantly sold my personal piece to my neighbor, and that taught me a big lesson. I doubled my art prices. And from then on, I now have a waiting list of people for my next projects. It was a very strange, in a way, lesson that I learned about pricing. It showed that I guess I valued it, and therefore, I don't know what the lesson was, but I don't have any trouble selling my work at all now.
Let's see. Now the underwater ones.
Yeah. And then I'm going to actually show you some pieces that I can hold it up much closer to the screen for you all to see. So I learned to dive when I was 50 years old. I've been afraid of the water since a ranch kid, Alberta, the Rocky Mountains, and we never learned to swim or anything. And but I was determined, so I took diving lessons in Australia on the Great Barrier Reef. And once I got my head under the water, I couldn't believe how beautiful it was. I think whoever's up there, whoever designed the world, he or she saved her best gardens for under the sea. And so I've been hooked ever since. And I teach classes on the 5-day seminars here in my studio. And it's one of my favorite things to teach. This is a very, very early, very, very primitive one. Okay. This is a piece that's crazy quilted in the back, and lots of embellishments and wonderful things. And I don't have a really good photograph. I have some details of it and everything, but I was teaching in California for the International Quilts. And I can't remember where it was, Santa Barbara, anyway, one of those towns along the coast, and it was stolen off the wall by one of my students.
Oh my.
Yeah, I have a lot of theft of my work because this piece is 36 inches, just the needlework piece is 36 by 20, and then the big wide border and everything and all that. But yeah, I was teaching a seminar, a one-day class. It was in there on display, and then it wasn't. And I didn't notice until I was packing up that it was gone.
Wow.
So we put out all kinds of attention, and we had people searching on the internet and all this kind of stuff. And they think a lot of this artwork, this quilts and art to wear and stuff goes overseas. Some it doesn't stay in the States. So whoever has it, I hope they're enjoying it, because it breaks my heart that that is what happened. But it was an early piece. So now I do these kind of pieces, and they are very detailed, and they're framed in a box, like a little box frame, because in places they're up 2 to 3 inches deep. And it's all kinds of different embellishment and needlework techniques. And I love making them. I really enjoy the process.
It's like fun. I love this
Thank you.
floral
Yes,
thing
very
down
cool.
here. That's pretty
And
cool.
hand-dyed velvet, silk velvet.
Oh, bless you. I think this is the last one.
This is the Monterey Kelp Gardens, and another piece that I've done. And the kelp is made from silk noil that I hand dyed, and then I used Wonder Under to meld 2 pieces together, so it's 2-sided, and then I burned the edges to create that kelp look. Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And that's everything you sent me.
Good. So
All right.
do you want me to show you some of this new work? Are you going to ask me questions that I can show you as I go along?
Why don't
However
you
you
show,
want to do it.
why don't you show us your new work? Oh, there's my dog. Let me go on mute. Why don't you show us your new pieces?
Okay, well, first of all, I wanted to tell you that I think some of you may have some of my books. And I heard somebody early in the chat line saying, this is the lady that did crazy quilting way back in the old days. And I'm going, wait a minute, I'm 76, I'm just getting started. So the only thing that's changed about me is that I have grown in my work, and I'm exploring new avenues. I'm still writing books. Up until the pandemic, I'm still teaching. I'm still traveling internationally. But I became quite ill 2 years ago because of a thyroid condition. I have Graves' disease. And that also created a problem for my heart. And for almost 2 years, they couldn't find out what was wrong with me. And then when the pandemic came along, I went to 2 experts in Denver, Colorado, and they discovered that that my heart wasn't working properly, and I had to have heart surgery in October. So I have, in a way, the pandemic has been a real quiet time for me, but it's also allowed me to heal. And I'm in the best of health anybody could be now. I'm so lucky. And I'm finally getting my creativity back. I went for a year and a half not using a needle at all. Yeah, I didn't want to. I wasn't even, I didn't want to even come to the studio. So anyway, but in spite of all that, and I'm supposed to be working on a new book, I have a lot of things working on. So I'm going to show you, first of all, this photograph. And this photograph is done by a dear friend of mine, and his name is Brian Lyons, and he is in my photography club. And I asked him, I got written permission from him and to use his photograph, because this is the first time I've ever used somebody else's photograph. And I asked him to, if I could please create it. So there it is. And here is my needlework piece.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, let me get the light on it better for you. Can you all see that up close?
Uh-huh.
I'll come back. See?
Yeah.
So this is what I mean by producing the same picture, the same size, everything is the same as the photograph. So I've just finished that piece, and I've used that for Fiber Forum. I had to renew my membership with Fiber Forum. And we have a little 4-year-old granddaughter who is, I find it hard to believe that she's adopted, but she is. And we went through, my youngest daughter went through a lot of problems trying to conceive. And I ended up doing all these tiny, tiny little embroideries. Just turn this away there, that's better. And this is on painter's threads. It's like an Ultrador, but it is hand dyed by painter's threads, and you could buy them. They're postcard size.
Huh.
And people didn't know what to do with them, so they stopped making them. So I bought as many as I could possibly afford, and I created all these little embroidered pictures for them, and they're framed like a painting. And we sold them at 2 auctions on Facebook. And people were so generous. And we raised $14,000 towards the adoption of our beautiful baby granddaughter.
Wow.
Yeah, so I do these. I do a lot of these. This is a commissioned piece. And right now I'm in the process of working on a very large, very old piece that I got really, I didn't get tired of doing it, but something, I'll tell you what happened. So this is from an actual photograph of 2 pictures that I've put together to create this scene. Okay. This is the exact size that the needlework is going to be also, see?
Okay.
Okay, so here it is.
So is this
This is the
crazy
piece.
quilted, or is it just stitched?
No, it's hand stitched.
Wow.
Let me come, I'm sorry, it gets so dark, doesn't it? I don't know how to do this. I'm gonna have to figure out better lighting. If I hold it up like that, well, you can't even see really good there. It's all stitching.
Huh.
You see that?
Did you
Let me
print,
stand back.
did you
Let me
print
stand
the
back.
did you print the picture onto the fabric and you're embellishing it, or
No,
you
no.
started out with blank fabric and stitched the whole thing?
Yeah, let me show you how I work. I'm going to tell you how I do it. And all those other landscape pieces you see, this is how I work. So I take a photograph. I work with my own photography.
Mm-hmm.
So I print my picture out exactly the size I want it to be. And then I go into Photoshop and I do what they call find edges. And find edges gives me almost like a negative effect that I can trace. And from there, I can trace the piece onto trace paper. Do you see that?
Uh-huh.
And that's what I work from, onto a piece of muslin
Okay.
cut to size. And this is, I teach in my studio 5-day seminars to my advanced students. And some of the work that they've done is just absolutely phenomenal. So if I stand back, I think I finally got it figured out lighting wise here for you. You see the picture?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. This is all stitched. I use also an embellisher to push some of the stitching back into the back. Like that.
Huh.
Yeah, so they're very intense, take a long time to do, but when I get them finished, I feel pretty good about them. Also with my under the sea pieces, here's a piece that I'm now working on. So this is a pretty large piece. When I bring it in, you can see, and then all the work down here, it gets very thick down in this area. And this piece is about, I'd say 3/4 of the way done. I have to do a lot more work on it.
Could you turn it sideways so we could see how thick no, I mean,
Sideways.
yes, that
Yeah.
way.
I don't know that you'll see that, but I sure can.
Huh.
Wow.
And if you ever want to come to La Vida, I do seminars down here, only in the summer. I do 8 different seminars each year. And my classes are limited to 6 people.
Wow.
So
Very
keeps
cool.
me busy. Here's a little cottage piece that I did last summer. And this is a really fun work for me because as my photographs, and I make the little paintings that are printed onto silk, and then we do a crazy quilt surround and all kinds. They're very sort of Grandma Moses naive type pieces, but I went from crazy quilting to this kind of work into my fine art pieces. And my students still enjoy doing stuff like this.
So give us a definition of what crazy quilting is, because I always thought it was just the extra embellishments and the fly stitching along the edges, but it sounds like it.
Crazy quilting is not quilting. Crazy quilting came about, it lasted 10 years in the Victorian era. And it all started, I think it was oh God, it's my husband calling me. I just turned him off. Whoops. How did it, why? Oh, you know why? It's ringing in spite of the fact because, sorry girls, anyway.
That's okay.
Crazy quilting was a Victorian, it lasted about 10 years, and it's applique pieces, fancy fabrics onto a whole cloth piece, right? Then each seam line is embroidered with fancy Victorian stitches, okay? And maybe I don't have. So like, oh, this is just going to be really bad.
I can pull one of these back up.
No, that's okay. I think I can get in here. I cover these, I have these shrink wraps each year because people want to touch them. It's very, this stuff is very, very tactile. And so each seam line is covered with stitching, right? And the difference is a crazy quilt was never made to be a utilitarian quilt. There is no padding in between. the backing in the front. They're tied like a pillowcase quilt, and they were never meant to be on a bed, never meant to be used. They're show-off pieces for the Victorian women to show off their beautiful quilting. Okay, so
Okay.
that's the definition of a crazy quilt. And the Denver Art Museum has one of the finest crazy quilt collections in the nation. No.
Very
Okay,
cool.
anything? Okay, you want me to keep, how are we doing time-wise?
We're at a little, almost an hour and a half, so.
All right, let me show you a couple of more things and then I'll say goodbye.
And we can see if anybody else have any questions for you too.
There you go. There's another fun piece.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and you can see the framing, how thick it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Like
I
the-
have to be able to lay down so that it doesn't touch the glass at all. Crazy quilting doesn't have to be a quilt. Can be a crazy quilt stocking, things like this.
Mm-hmm.
I do these a lot. See, it's like this.
Oh, cool.
And the latest piece that I'm working on now is the crazy quilt in behind me over
Mhm.
here. Piece here.
Uh-huh.
And I'm doing that for the Houston Quilt Show. I'll try to get it in next year. And where I've taught for 42 years, each year, we're going to have a full slate of classes coming up this year. I have 7 classes there in October, and hopefully it'll all go and be successful, because the whole quilting needlework industry just folded.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to have a good show down there. I'm a little bit nervous about it, to tell you the truth, because Texas doesn't follow many of the rules.
Because it's Texas.
I know. But anyway, does anybody have questions for me?
Yeah. Do you want to come off mute and you could turn your video back on if anybody has questions?
Can you give us an idea of how long it takes to do a piece?
Well, it depends. I mean, I don't keep track of time, because I work, when I'm in good health, when I was in good health, I treat my work like a job, my art. I come to the studio at 9 in the morning. I probably don't break at lunchtime, and I go for dinner at about 6:30 and come back and I work at night. So I put in long hours, and I don't take the weekend off. I work 7 days a week in my studio. And depending on what I'm doing, because I wear a lot of hats, I write books, and I also write books that aren't anything to do with needlework. And so, like, for example, years ago, I did a little storybook called Recollections, which is a little novel for children. And then for my own good, I also do private, like, publications. For example, this is a book that's called Delectable Memories, and it's a collection of recipes, stories, and photographs. And so it's my photography along with family recipes. See, so it looks like that. It's like a coffee table book. The next book I'm going to privately publish is my storybook with the pictures I'm taking this year. The next book I'm doing for the needlework world is called Landscapes, Seascapes, and Under the Sea. And that's with C&T Publishing.
When's that supposed to come out?
Oh, it won't be out for another 1.5 years. It takes, almost 2 years to write a book. You have to, and because I don't have anyone doing things for my books, I do all the needlework, all the things in the book. So I don't like the idea of people who supposedly write a book and then have their students work throughout it. Well, it's nice to have some students work, but I think if you're going to do that, those students also deserve part of the royalty if you're going to do that, or else you better pay them pretty handsomely to be in that book and gift them with, say, a couple of $100 and then give them 6 to 12 books. I think that might be more fair instead of having the honor of being in a book.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
no, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Kathy, did you have one? Kathy Edwards?
Yes, I always do.
I have down here, it says 4 in chat. What does that mean?
Means there's 4 messages in the chat, but
Okay.
it was earlier. Don't have
Yeah.
any new stuff.
That's
So
okay.
Kathy, what was your question?
I'm glad you talked about your schedule, because when we were looking at some of those pieces, obviously your eyes and your mind are that of an artist, but I thought she's got to be a sewing machine because those pieces are so huge and there's such density of stitching in there. I was just amazed at the size of your body of work.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was a little shocked at it myself when Trudy said if I'd send her some pictures, and I started going through all my backups and photographs, and I said to my son, my God, I really produced a lot of stuff over the years. And I'm 76. I just turned 76 on St. Patty's Day. And I've got a lot more work to do, you know? And people say, when are you going to retire? Oh, I'm not. So I hope I'm still stitching, you know, as I'm on my way out. But yeah, but I do work hard at it. I treat it like a job. It's also the way when I was a single mother for 11 years, I bought a home with that. I helped put my children through university. So I take my work really serious. And, you know, also, I met an amazing artist in Australia years ago, Robert Ullman, who used to say, there's thousands of people out there much more talented than me. And it's true. But they don't have my work ethic. And if you don't have a work ethic, you're not going to be successful in this industry. It's just all there is to it. And so I'm one of those worker bees, you know, and I've been at it for 40 some years. So, and I still get paid to do what I love. And that's really amazing to me. So thank you very much for tonight, by the way. I really enjoyed being with you.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. Beautiful, beautiful things to see, and
Thank you.
to see what your process is of going from the picture to
Now,
the.
I also gave you, I gave you one last picture. Did you get the one of my studio, my guest house studio? I sent you one more last picture I wanted to show the ladies, because I'm going to go out with a bang here and tell you about my studio. I'm in my studio right now, and I can comfortably seat 6 people in my studio, and I purposely keep my classes incredibly small because I'm past that age where I want to be somebody's entertainment. I want serious students to come in and learn with me and to have a libido experience. So what we do is we come in on a Wednesday, and on a Friday, and we start on Saturday morning. And each day we visit one private studio in the Libido area. So you get to see the potter or a silversmith in a studio that isn't open to the public. You stay in, you know, Airbnbs, bed and breakfast on the economy, and we eat together 3 nights a week. And you know, you eat here too. And so you have a Levita experience, and a lot of people will come in and have a holiday as well as come to a seminar. They'll take a few days before or after. And so this year I haven't advertised very much at all, because last year, of course, all the seminars had to be canceled or postponed. So a lot of my girls, I had a few come in during the pandemic, but then the others just didn't want to get their money back. They just wanted to carry it through. So I'm carrying a lot of those students through this summer. And when it's over, that'll, my obligations will finally, I'll feel better about it. And then we'll start again next summer. But this year I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seminars. And the Crazy Quilting seminar, unfortunately, is closed, but I do have room like for 1 or 2 other students in the others. If you go to my website, Judith Baker Montano, you can click on seminars and look around. Even if you just come down to Levita to look around, we would really be happy to have you come down to our little town. We need the tourists and the recognition this year. We've been through a hard time with the fire. We had the spring fire, then we had the terrible hailstorm, and then we had a flood, and now we had the pandemic. So we could do with a good summer. Did you find it, Trudy?
I think so. Let me, I've got to get it
Okay.
sized kind of funny on this. Hang on, get it.
So how often do you have these interviews?
We've been doing them about every month to
Cool.
3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks to a month. Let me see.
Nice.
Nope, that's not good. Let me do this.
That's okay if you can't find it. That's okay, dear. Don't worry about it.
I found one, but I know what I'll do. Let me just make this big, because this will get more of it. And
My daughter-in-law is here. She's works for Airbnb, and she's going to show me how to work with Zoom, more with Zoom. There it is.
awesome.
There you go. I just wanted you to see what it's like down here during the summer. And this is my studio, and the little town of Levita, and the inside of the studio and the outside of it. It's really pretty down here in the summers. And we would love for you to come and visit.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Did I?
It looks
Okay.
fine. I mean, it's just,
Okay.
you scrolled up and down. Thank you. Thank you for
That's
that. I
fine.
appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
This one shares screens a little different than my work one does, so I wasn't sure it was on the
You
right
do a good
screen.
job. Thank you.
Somebody
can I
somebody commented in the chat that your husband is so handsome.
He is. He's a handsome old dude. My husband played professional football when he was younger, and he was 6'7". And I always tell a story about him when I met him, and he told me he played football when he was younger. And as a Canadian, I know nothing about football, and he was telling me about all the different positions, and he came across the phrase tight end. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, a tight end?" I always thought that was a man with a good bottom. He couldn't believe it that I didn't know what that meant. But anyway, yeah, he's incredibly patient. I just wrote an article, another story about him this week, when we got married up at the Bayou Ranch, and I use him as a model every once in a while. He just fits perfect in with my photography group. And this week, he's another model. He's the cowboy leaning on the fence, looking out into the distance with the gloves in his back pocket.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions?
Judith, my mom retired at 88 years old. So you still have quite
There
a
you
few more
go.
years to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm from a ranching community and we just they don't retire up there. I mean, what would you do? I mean, I get to travel with my work and everything, but I do love travel and things like that. And I want to spend more time with my husband, and I want to spend especially more time with my children. I've missed them so much. And I'm sure all of you have gone through the same thing, being so isolated in the pandemic. It's really created some emotional problems for people, so I'm glad it's loosening up now, just to be able to hug them, just to be with them, just to sit at the table, even have an argument, just sit and talk. It's just been wonderful. So I hope you all get to experience that.
you've come a
Anyone?
long ways.
Definitely.
Yes.
have.
I just wanted to thank you for your program, for sharing all your art with us.
Thank
And
you.
also, thank you for talking about putting a value on your work. I collect, some of the textile arts.
Right.
A studio artist, and it just shocks me that so often these beautiful works are just treated as women's hobbies or women's work. And
Yes.
I see what they're sold for at the craft shows and stuff. It's like, it makes my
Yes.
heart hurt that this beautiful work is not valued.
Well, me too. And you've hit on a real sore spot for me. Women just have been so used to doing for everybody else. And they'll say, oh, I just pick it up when I have a little bit of free time or whatever. If they saved the hours that go into a piece of work and paid themselves minimum wage, they would be shocked at what that would cost. And so you have to, as for me to be able, it took me years to be able to just call myself an artist. And when I first started out, oh my goodness, I was selling these little heart pendants for, let me show you here. I brought one just to show you, because when I think about it, I used to do these little punch needle hearts. See, they're black with leather, and they're and I used to sell them for $25 a piece. Oh my God, it took me hours. This one would be $35, And now that I've put a value on myself, you wouldn't get this for under 200. I mean, forget it. I'm going to pay myself a decent wage, but I've also paid my dues. I've been in the industry for 40 some years. So, I'm a 40-year-old overnight wonder.
I think the people who don't know how to do any kind of needle work or any kind of crafting of any kind don't realize how much time and effort goes into anything that we make, and they have no idea how much it would cost if we were to put a price on it.
That's right. And I have a daughter who's a graphic designer, and she works in corporate work. And she says, unless you know what goes into creating a piece, even like she designs like brochures and things like that. She'll have some old man, always a man, come by and say, oh, I need this brochure by tomorrow afternoon, not realizing all the hours and the layering and the what goes into creating that. You're not going to be able to just produce that in 2 days, but because they don't understand the process or anything. And it's the same with the needlework and that. If I really sat down and added up the hours in my pieces, even though they sell for thousands of dollars, I'm still probably not making a really big wage, but I do enjoy the process, but I now charge an appropriate fee for it too. And I hope you'll all do that too. I know we used to, when I was with the Kingwood Quilt Guild, we would have a little sign that would say, yes, you can make this, but will you? And then the other one is this
Yeah.
crazy quilt stocking cost $145 to make because I had to go out and buy all the supplies. And it's selling probably for $50. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
undersell ourselves. But listen, thank you so much for having me, and I enjoyed it. And thanks to Trudy especially for being so patient with me. And I'm sorry about the La Vida internet connection.
Did good.
It came back up. You're doing good. So
Yeah,
Yes.
it's what makes La Vida, I tell you. I hope you'll all get down to see us and to see our little town and enjoy it. It's full of wonderful artists and beautiful, beautiful countryside.
well, thank you very, very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank
And-
you.
Good
Good night, everybody. Thank you
Good
so much.
night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Trudy. Thank you.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Bye.